o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Today we've got John running slides, and I'm in a two separate computers. They are not hooked together situation, so this will be a fun little slalom ski through whatever happens next. So I thought we would start with introductions, and I'm just looking at how to do this. Let's start with Lysian. Tell me if I'm saying your name right. Lysian is here sitting in for Melina Stott, who thinks about housing. And go ahead, tell us like the quick short version.
So I started this week with Fletcher Group. I'm an MSW graduate student, new to recovery housing, really excited with what I see that the Fletcher Group is working on. And Melina was like, you can go be at this meeting and meet lots of new wonderful people. So I was like, yay, I'm here. I've been in social service about 14 years in life, working in foster care and child care and lots of different venues, but recovery's new. So I'm super excited. So thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. She is going to, but Melina is helping us on the housing front, and that's how Lysian happens to be coming in here covering for Melina for this meeting. Peggy Webster, speaking of housing.
Sorry. I'm on the housing task force. I'm also on the board of the Peninsula Housing Authority.
Good to have you here. Mel Melmid.
I get that just traded back to 101.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mel Melmed. I work with Olympic Community of Health, and I work on the 3-county coordinated opioid response project. And with that, we're also working on recovery housing. So it's good to see areas of overlap.
Well, we're really happy you make it to this meeting because we need your perspective for sure. Chief McKern.
Tim McKern, Quilcene Fire on the south end, and I'm happy to be here and looking forward to continuing on this program.
Great. Commissioner Brotherton?
Yep, Greg Brotherton, Jefferson County Commissioner, and also representing the Board of Health, which has city representation and citizen representation on it as well.
Good to have you here. Dave Fortino?
Hi, Dave Fortino, Jail Superintendent. Nice to see everybody.
Good to have you. Cherish Cronmiller.
Hi everyone, I'm Cherish Cronmiller. I'm the Executive Director of the Olympic Community Action Programs, or what you know as OLICAP, your community action agency for Jefferson and Clallam counties.
Thank you for being here. Apple Martine. Somehow I think you're on mute, maybe? No? Try again. We get just this little mini mouse. Apple, we are really happy you're here. Okay. Lisa Grundle. So close, almost unmuted. Oh, I wonder if it's our thing. Can anybody hear her?
Nope,
no, but it says that you're unmuted. We'll come back to you. Okay, let's try Nat. He'll be funny in that Mickey Mouse voice.
Hello.
There we go.
Do I sound okay?
You do sound good.
Right on. Nat Jacob, I'm with the Public Defender's Office. Good to be here.
Thanks for coming. Jim Novelli?
Jim Novelli, most of the time, Executive Director at DBH.
Good to have you here. Lisa Thomas?
Hi everybody, Lisa Ray Thomas, and I'm with the University of Washington Alcohol and Drug Abuse Institute, where I support statewide opioid response work, and used to be in Mel's position where I met all of you when we started up the 3-county coordinated opioid response work. And I also work with the American Indian Health Commission of Washington State with their opioid response work too. And Apple, Caleb is who I work for, and he logged into a Zoom call with me and he sounded like one of the chipmunks, and I just laughed and laughed. It was so funny.
I'm going to come back quickly to Lisa Grundle just to see if that fixed itself, because she's going to be talking a little bit later in the program.
Can you hear me?
Yes, all right.
Okay, good. I had my settings wrong. Sorry about that. I'm
Really?
Lisa with Health Facilities Planning and Development, been doing some data work with the consortium. So
Thank you. Thank you for being here. How
glad
about
you can hear me.
We're glad to. How about Adam York?
Hi, Adam York, Jefferson Healthcare Data Analyst.
Hi, Adam. Good to have you here. Let's see, Joe Knoll.
Joe Knoll, Jefferson County Sheriff.
Thank you for being here.
Good to see
Jolene
everybody.
Cron. Jolene Cron.
Jolene Cron, I'm the Deputy Administrator Clinical Director with the Salish Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization.
Thank you for being here. I like your background.
Thank you.
Dunya Full.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dunya, Jefferson Healthcare Director of Population Health and Care Transformation.
Good. Thank you for being here. Vicki Kirkpatrick.
Hi, I'm Vicki Kirkpatrick, and I am the Director of Jefferson County Public Health. And Lori, you didn't comment on my background.
Well, it's got a different sort of a vibe to it than.
I like, that messy vibe.
Thank you for being here. Chief Black.
I'm Chief Black with EJFR. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. Denise Spanker. Oh, now we've got another one of those we can't hear you even though you unmuted. As you figure that out, I'm going to hop over to Patrick Johnson. I bet Patrick is getting ice cream out of the refrigerator right now. How about Gabby Codell?
Gabby, I'm the clinical supervisor of Believe in Recovery and the president of Gateway to Freedom. I'm also the navigator for the MAP program in the Jefferson County Jail.
Good, thank you for being here. Anna McHenry?
Hi, this is Anna McHenry. I staff the 1/10 of 1% and developmental disabilities. Thanks for inviting me.
Good to have you here. And let's see, Judd Haynes.
Yeah, thanks, Lori. Hey, everyone. I'm Judd Haynes. I'm the navigator with the Port Townsend Police Department.
Good to have you here. Patrick Johnson. Well, we saw him, so we know he's there. Is there anyone that I missed? Okay. I think we'll then just hop into our presentation. Just quickly, I wanted to note that we had a couple of therapeutic court graduate. This is actually a couple, and they completed the program, the drug therapeutic court, and have, I think, moved to the Arizona area where they have family. So we really wish them well as they go forward. Housing was definitely something that they struggled with while they were here. And I'm glad that they found a stable situation to move into. And then I just wanted to note, a lot of us have talked privately about Victoria Brown. This is the person who passed away over at the fairgrounds. And I noticed that there was an article on her in the Whidbey Record, and I've put the link of it there if you'd like to go learn a little bit about her journey before she was at the fairgrounds. I think it's interesting, and it sort of speaks to or is an example of what we see over and over again. But well articulated, and we're really saddened by her passing. For today, our agenda is going to be to go through some our deliverables and update you on the next steps that we're taking there. Greg Brotherton is going to give us a little bit of an overview on the Behavioral Health Advisory Committee's awards that they gave this in December for 2021 and 22. And then we'll talk a little bit about some things that are happening on the regional landscape. John will give a CHIP update and take us through some crosswalking of ICG funding and some of the CHIP work group stuff. So feel free to ask questions as we're going through. Just speak up and stop me. Oh, and I do see that Matt Reddy just came on. Want to make sure you guys all know Matt. Matt, you can say hello.
Hi, sorry I'm late. We had a commission meeting run long.
Oh, well, we're happy you could get here. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Okay, so on into what's going on with the grant itself. I'm happy to say that all of the contracts that we wanted to get in place so that we could start putting grant money out into the community, those have all been completed. There may be some future ones around the communications action plan, as well as there might be something relating to the harm reduction program that we're just exploring the startup of down in South County. And potentially an admin coordinator role. Although if we could get away without it, I'm sure we can use the money in some other aspect out in the community. So we'll see how that unfolds. In our grant requirements, we had to give a quarterly report, which was a bunch of data, and I went through and I talked to all of you. That has been completed and submitted, and I haven't gotten any feedback on it, which I'm taking as a good sign that they're not going to bounce it back to me. So that was happy to have that done by the end of December. I did want to talk a little bit just to highlight some of the evolutions in the work plan that we had to submit with that quarterly report. You can go look at the whole report, and I won't labor very much here in this meeting. In the link, if you go to the link, the report shows each of the criteria or required activities that the grant wants us to do something on. It shows all of the activities that we proposed we would do in response to each of those required activities. And now it's got an update with the highlighted yellow are the things that have changed. Any type that's in green are actions that we have done in the last 3 months. And then red, which I can't think if there was anything that we'd completed yet, but but red text indicates something that was completed. And I'm pretty sure that legend is on the bottom of each of the pages, but if anybody wants to go in and really look closely at it, that's what that's about. So just some of the evolutions that happened here in the first 3 months. We learned under the prevention tab that one of the activities we had proposed around the good behavior game, that's on hold just because the schools are dealing with a lot right now. Perhaps it will be something we could put on the table later, but for the moment that's on hold. The care coordination program is on hold until the summer. The friendly faces program, same thing, shifting it down to first gear until later this year. On the jail to community transition team, we noted that we were waiting at that stage, we were awaiting some information back on the grant, which not we, but the jail has been awarded. And then also noted that we had sort of refocused Lisa Grundle and HFPD's time from looking just solely at crisis stabilization facility feasibility. And we have her sort of helping us with all of the data for the grant. And that helps us out too, because there's a required data coordinator role, and now we can check that box with them, which works out well. In the treatment front, some of the same things around the care coordination, but also DBH refocused from that day program effort, which really isn't something that during the time of COVID that we would be focusing on, to work on their provider prescriber integration project, which of course they're making good progress on between them and Safe Harbor. And then let's see what's different. And then on the next slide, under recovery, the additional training beyond what we currently have at the Recovery Cafe around setting up a peer network or broadening our peer network, that is sort of downshifted to first gear, while we have the folks that were using that funding on focus on developing relationships and connecting folks to services over at the fairgrounds. So that is a highlight of what is going on that we alerted the HRSA folks to in terms of the evolution of our plan, of our work plan. John, those next two slides, I just always include them in case we need them for references, but I don't think we need to talk about them. On the provider prescriber, we heard, of course, at the last meeting from the hospital And now we're strategizing next steps to increase the patient volume for waivered providers and improve the completion rate of getting them from prescriber into counseling. And that's something that we'll be working on over the coming months with all of the places that have waivered providers that maybe we haven't got the volume we're quite looking for yet. Safe Harbor and DBH. Jim, is there anything you'd like to say about that, what you're doing on the integration effort there? We're going to invite you back in February or March to give a full on whatever's going on, but if you had anything quick you wanted to say there.
We're still moving forward, developing the right forms and getting our EHR system up to snuff so we can we're hoping against hope that maybe first week of February, we actually have the first patients going through. So that's our goal. Obviously the holidays got in the way, hecting those holidays, but slowed us down a little bit. But Ford and I have been meeting on a very regular basis, and so we're getting there. So a little slower than I anticipated, but we're being patient. So gonna do it right the first time.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's worth spending a little time as you set it up, no doubt about that. And then I know we'll see a little bit later that this idea of provider prescriber integration, I think that's taken a priority with the 3 core treatment group or will as we go forward into the coming year. Data collection, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Grundle.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay. Great. So we had a meeting a couple weeks ago. Several of you participated in, and we did, it was a great meeting. We talked a lot about the benefits and challenges of data standardization, and Lori's done a nice job of recapping kind of the discussion, and the actual notes are on the Be Healthy Jefferson on the library BHC page. Is that the right way to describe it, Lori?
Yep.
And so what we're doing moving forward, there's several people that are involved in some data deep dives with Lori and other people. And then from my perspective, I'm trying to pull together a data list of all the kind of local, regional, state, national data that can feed into some of these things that we need to either report to HRSA, are going to help us with other projects specific to BHC and even some bigger community health projects, just so we can have kind of a data, I don't know if dictionary is the right word, but a data repository. And so we're going to be pulling all the data all of you have provided and doing a crosswalk. That's hopefully I think we're planning on having that available for the next meeting, if that's correct, Lori and John. And we already have got some more data. Yeah, that's right. We already got some more data from Cherish, from OLICAP that we're excited about integrating and looking at. So yeah, we're excited about that. So those are our next steps. Did I miss anything? I'm trying to keep it short because I know you have a lot more. Is there anything I missed to say, Lori?
Oh, I'm thinking that that meeting with Dr. Kingston was a nice step in the right direction.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We had a great meeting with Dr. Susan Kingston from UW, and she has agreed to share some of their data with us and is digging into some other analyses about what we can get from the local level on some of their data. And so that was a great conversation. We're excited to tie that data into our work as well. So thank you for the reminder.
Thank you, Lisa.
Sure.
And then
This is Mel. Can I share something I just learned about today?
Please.
Healthcare Authority, as you know, has a dashboard that people can look at, and you can look at it by county and region. But Public Health Seattle King County is just rolling out, and I don't know if it's going to be available. It should be available to the LHJ. They're rolling out that data, but where it's you can look at it by zip code, so that you can really see in a more granular fashion what's happening. So Vicki and Lori, I want to let you know that's out there. You could talk to Andrew at Kitsap Public Health. He is how I heard about it.
Well, that is great news.
That's another great reminder. We also talked about that. We're going to, part of this crosswalk is going to look at which data points are available at the zip code level, at the regional level, census tract level, kind of get a feel for what's available at what level, and then how valid it is as you look at those smaller levels. So that's exciting. I didn't know about that one, so that's great.
Our goal is with that data group is to not not to reinvent the wheel, but take anything that's out there and figure out how it feeds in with what we're trying to understand and use it in a cohesive way. And I'm betting that won't just be, that will be useful for more than just us. I think it will be useful at the housing level. There's a lot of places where I think that could be a really valuable effort to share around our county.
Great.
On our next slide, I think John's going to talk about this one.
Yeah, if I can get off mute, I will. Yeah, so we have recently completed a printed online resource guide for our community. It's a project we've been working on for quite a while, and I'm really excited that it's finally finished. I have 2,000 copies of this to distribute to the community, and I'm hoping that some of the members in this group can help me with the distribution process. So my plan is to distribute to food banks, public health, EMS, law enforcement, community centers throughout the county. But if folks can think of other agencies that could benefit from these, I mean, these are primarily for people who aren't able to get online, and it's just one page. It's a really simple thing. It's front and back, so it's really easy to carry around. You can just stuff it in your pocket. But I'd be very interested to get any feedback that you guys have about where else we might want to distribute these, so that we can get it out into the community.
John?
Yeah.
We'll take 100.
Okay.
Do you want me to come pick them up, or do you want to drop them off?
I'm gonna do a little drive around, so I'll drop them by your guys' office.
Great.
EJFR would like some as well, whatever you can spare.
Okay.
And if possible, if there is a way you could share a PDF of the document, we would like to post it on our social media as well.
Sure, I can do that. And I think most of you are aware, but the Be Healthy Jefferson, the CHIP website has an online resource guide that's a lot more extensive and has a lot more links to it. But we wanted this to be something that was, kind of easily portable and transportable, so that, people, when fire and rescue saw somebody and they said, oh, I'm having housing difficulty, they could, hand them one of these and they could stuff it in their pocket and take it with them.
Absolutely. I think that's a strong presence. The only reason I mention a digital version of this same abridged document would be our people can store it on their cell phone, and then when they're in the field, if they encounter somebody, they can quickly, if they don't have a card on them, look it up. And
sure, that's great. I'll send it to everybody in the group. I have a PDF copy of it, so that's not a problem at all. But we're really excited to get this moving forward, and kudos to the printery. They printed it for us for free, and were very helpful in getting it out. And then also the Recovery Cafe sorted through all the resources and did a reality check to make sure they were still providing the resources and that the dates and times were correct. So excited to move this project forward, and I'll be transporting them out. And if folks have ideas about where to distribute them, let me know.
Okay, great. I'm just typing to Mel that I can't figure out how to go get the resource link and put it in the chat. So I'll be sure to send it out to everybody after the meeting, perhaps along with the PDF that John's talking about. So thank you, Mel. Good question. And then I saw Lisa Thomas asked about the Recovery Cafe. Lisa, you might have been thinking that maybe you asked that at the time that John was asking where they should be. And absolutely, I know because the Recovery Cafe, actually, there were several folks involved in putting that effort together.
Yeah, so, thank you. I heard that after. Thank you, John. You worked with them already. Mm-hmm.
John, this is Anna, maybe reaching out to different churches might also be.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, Anna. That's a good idea. So I may check with the Ministerial Association and see if they could do the distribution for me.
Great idea.
Any other thoughts on that one before we move on?
I guess just, you're going to send something out, John, to all of us here?
I will, but Sheriff Knoll, I'll also bring some out to the jail. And then assuming that you could, if I leave them there, you could distribute them to your sheriffs.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I was thinking if we had that link, we could probably print our own too, I suppose. Or...
Sure. These are nice. They're kind of on a heavier paper, but yeah. I mean, feel free to print as many as you want.
I prefer them printed by somebody else on nice yellow type paper, but yeah,
we're really grateful to Printery.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to jail to community transitions. I've given the overview. Dave Fortino, was there anything more you wanted to say? I know we've got on the slide here what you've got. I know you're working on it. I'm looking for you in the lineup here.
I know there's so many of us on the
list. Okay, there you are.
Yeah, so the county commissioners approved our contract, so I'm in the process of getting this back to the state to execute the final contract there. We're still working on subrecipient agreements, not only with this grant, but our MAC grant. So as soon as we're able to secure those, I'm hoping we'll start programming as soon as possible. So it's excited to offer the new program there at the jail. I think it's going to be a real benefit, I think, to our clients. So, yeah.
Great. Oh, I haven't started hassling Dave at all about how we can do anything that carries on beyond the life of that grant in terms of aftercare, because I figured I'd wait until he actually had it in hand before bothering him about that piece of it. But it's something that's in the game plan. On the peer network development and the recovery cafe, I did go back and forth with Brian, who's on maternity leave or paternity leave right now. And he mentioned that the two folks that the Recovery Cafe hired, they hired 2 part-time folks with the funding that we gave them, that they are working, first of all, they're working with over at the fairgrounds, trying to focus on developing relationships and connecting people to services there. Also, they are working to empower longstanding members to leadership positions, including co-facilitating recovery circles. So apparently their longest term members are now co-facilitating a women's recovery circle alongside the staff, and it's provided or proven to be a supportive and effective way to empower peer leadership. And their goal is to replicate that co-facilitator model with 1 member and 1 staff for future recovery circles as well. And those facilitators attend a once-a-month group supervision with a program manager, as well as weekly debriefs with the staff regarding the recovery circle dynamics and the member needs. And so their goal is to have a really thorough approach to bringing people into leadership in those peer network roles, and giving them plenty of time to meet with people who are experts at it and carry that into their own work as they're working with recovery circles. On harm reduction, John, do you want to talk about the harm reduction?
Sure. So we are starting to do some work to establish a harm reduction program in South County. We've met with a subgroup to look at what the possible activities might be and locations, and I'm starting to have those conversations. I think we're all in agreement that we're probably going to try to get a naloxone distribution in place first. And it's, I think it's an exciting program because I think often the South County region is kind of overlooked in terms of services that are available. So we're hoping to add some wraparound services to the potential syringe exchange or naloxone program so that we can provide some additional services to people who have substance use disorder in South County. So meetings will continue, and we're excited to hopefully move this initiative along.
I have to give a shout out to Chief McKern there. We really appreciate you anchoring that whole effort to get it rolling down there. I'm grateful that you're there. On our next slide, we're talking about the communication action plan. We, Denise and John and I did go out to Production Alliance. We met with them, gave them some overview of what we were looking for. They gave us a proposal. Probably what they gave us isn't a viable option, but we have another avenue that we're exploring, how we might collaborate in part with OCH with some funding that they just got. They don't even know that we're exploring collaborating with them yet because we just heard that they got the funding at their OCH board meeting this week. But anyways, there's some funding that they've got to address stigma, and we're going to see if there might be some way that we can collaborate there to address things that we know will be effective both here in our county and for the region. And then whatever's left from that, maybe we'll go back and look at Production Alliance for some smaller part of that communication action plan project. So it's in the works. It's just not as far along as we thought it would be at the moment. And then on the next two slides, those are both things that are sort of shifted down into first gear until the spring or summer. But one of the interesting things is that funding that we just talked about with OCH, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in a future slide here. They also are thinking about the CFR 42 Part 2. Did I say that right? 42 CFR Part 2? Yeah. So some of that, how are we going to handle the way we share information with each other, is a real foundational component to addressing both the navigator care coordination and the high utilizer program that we'd like to eventually get to with this grant funding. So I don't think we're not moving ahead on it, and it looks like it's not that we're not moving ahead on it. We are, but I think at a slower pace. But I think we've got some good basic things that we're starting to work through right now. So that then takes us to behavioral health related funding. So they aren't necessarily funding that we brought in, but they are funding efforts that are happening around the county. And I asked Commissioner Brotherton to give us an overview of the Behavioral Health Advisory Committee's 0.1% of 1% funding that just came out.
Sure. Thank you, Lori. And I'm going to look over at the other screen where I have this a little bit bigger and there's a lot of detail in here. So a real quick history, and I'll invite Anna, who staffs this, or Patrick, who sits on the Behavioral Health Advisory Committee and on the RFP panel, to speak up if I mischaracterize anything. So just real quick, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir since many of the awardees are in this meeting, but this uses 0.1% of 1% of the sales tax to supplement behavioral health efforts. And we've used it. We have a lot of returning applicants. As you can see, the 2020 award was $458,000. And luckily, sales tax was really not impacted by COVID very much. So we had a pretty strong year, and we were able to allocate, well, we allocated $650,000. A considerable amount of that goes to admin and evaluation. There's a lot of, we contract with Kitsap County for epidemiology to really evaluate the effectiveness of these mostly evidence-based practices. So we had $800,000 worth of applications for that 650, but that 650 both loses the admin and epidemiology, and also we pulled out $106,000 for the school-based support, which is on a different process. We'll have another RFP process in June. So this is a 2-year RFP that we carved out that $106,000. And I'll just go over a few of the highlights. I mean, we have a lot of great programs that we'd love to support them more. Most of the existing programs we were able to keep pretty much at the status quo. And then some of the new programs that we did, I'll call out Discovery Behavioral Health, made an application for wraparound case management that really was addressing a new gap in a real cut in services and funding for non-Medicaid, non-crisis behavioral health issues. And so this is a kind of an emergent problem in our funding mechanism. So while the $55,000 we allocated for that wraparound case management is probably, I don't know, somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4 of what is needed, at least it is something. You'll see the far right column, the emergency funds. We MCS that contracts for our school-based mental health clinics was contacted by Chimacum, I think it's Chimacum Elementary, certainly Chimacum School District, about expanding that service to the to Chimacum Elementary as well. So while this is outside of the RFP for school-based services, we used emergency funds, part of our $50,000 reserve, to address that and put them in line, give them support until the June RFP that is coming up. Also, juvenile family court in, I think, concert with Proctor House made an application for therapeutic support for a program that's coming together to create supportive housing for young adults aged 17 to 24, I believe. And it really is an underserved part of our population. And we thought that's exactly the kind of pilot project that we really wanted to put a little wind under if we can. So this is the therapeutic services that go with a lot of other pieces that involve many stakeholders, getting some housing units on the market for those folks that really didn't have, don't have, I don't know, like me, my parents helped me get to college and all that, and you don't have the support structures for that difficult transition from childhood to adulthood. And we thought that one was really critical. And so we ended up with $493,000 worth of awards. We wish we could have funded all of them fully. Everyone got pretty much a little bit less than they wanted. You can see on here, if you dig in, there's a lot of housing related costs that end up here because housing affects health outcomes, and there's not enough funds for housing. But as we have a new 1590 funding source for some of these housing sources, we look forward to the time when maybe, like the OLECAP utilities for the Haines Street cottages, which is critical, might be able to be used for different funding. So optimistic that we can apply more of these funds in the future to direct behavioral health applications. And I think that's it. So sorry, whirlwind tour, but I'd welcome any questions.
Commissioner, this is Anna. I'd just like to add that the additional funding for MCS counseling, it's going to provide 8 hours in Chimacum Creek Elementary, 8 hours in Chimacum Elementary, and 8 hours in Salish Elementary School. Thank you.
Thanks for the clarification.
Any other questions on that? Okay. Moving on, the next one, Dave Fortino's, this is the grant for MAT services. This is something that they had last year and it's being re-upped, and I'm looking again for Dave.
Yes, so this grant's in the same boat as our previous one. Actually, this one hasn't been executed yet. There's some delays in getting our contracts from the state, which has kind of put all of our programming delayed. But we're hoping that we'll have this one up and running as well by the end of this month. So this is just a continuation. It's actually a separate federal grant from the previous cycle. There were some changes to some of the deliverables in this grant, specifically HIV and hepatitis testing, screening and referral. But otherwise, it's providing medicated assisted treatment and developing an opioid treatment network with the jail and the community provider. So, like I said, hopefully we'll have this one done by the end of this month as well.
You're over there and get the contracts done, purgatory.
Yeah, it's a fun place to be.
Any questions about the MAT grant from the jail? Okay, moving on. Wanted to talk a little
Lori,
bit. Yes.
Sorry, this is Lisa. I wasn't able to unmute myself very quickly. So Dave, I'm Lisa Ray Thomas with UW ADI, and I'm going to be reaching out to you to see if you need any support with that networking piece, just so you know.
Yeah, look forward to hearing from you.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, so just bear with me because now I have blinding sun and no shade where I am. So on the regional landscape, I just wanted to bring a couple of things to the forefront. we have Vicki Kirkpatrick here who might speak a little bit to this. Some of us have heard, we saw a post by Kate Dean talking about the specter of a regionalized public health approach that would include, for our area at least, Jefferson, Mason, Clallam, and what was the other one? Kitsap, those 4 counties as one. Vicki, are you still on here, and do you want to speak to this at all?
Sure, I can speak to it. This is representative of the governor's new approach to addressing the COVID-19 mitigation and opening up, moving from phase to phase. And his new program is called Healthy Washington Roadmap to Recovery. And without any local input, the governor created regions, and in order for, regardless of how well a particular county may be doing in relationship to keeping the COVID-19 case rates down and maintaining the case investigation, contact tracing, the ability to move from phase 1, which all counties in the state are currently in, to phase 2 is dependent upon the entire region meeting all of the metrics and being able to move forward. And if you look at our counties, clearly Jefferson is the smallest with the least amount of population. So the probability, even though compared to most other counties in the state, we are doing very, very well, even though, you know, we are experiencing a surge in cases and case rates. We will not move the needle on the region, so it will be dependent upon how Kitsap does, how Mason does, and how Clallam does collectively. And clearly Kitsap has by far the highest population, the highest number of cases, and will influence heavily how the region goes. Also in Mason County, right now, the way their rates are being determined includes the state prison there. And I think I'm hoping, and it seems only fair, that actually should be removed from what's happening in Mason County, because that's actually a very enclosed population, with the exception of the people who work there. And we certainly want to make sure that those folks get vaccinated. But it does put a little bit of a different face on the impact possibly to our businesses at the local level if we are dependent on our colleagues in the other, not our colleagues, but on the compliance level, if you will, and the containment of the disease in the other 3 counties that we are partnered with. And we have done a lot of things collectively in Kitsap, Jefferson, and Clallam. That's our ACH region, and that's our natural region. And now we'll also be looking at what's happening in Mason. So it's a little bit different. It's all about the mitigation. It's all about the control and the decrease of the spread, which is critically important. And but it does have potential ramifications for our ability to move forward in the phases based on our own county cases and case rates.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Vicki, I think the underlying question too is that, while this is unfortunate in my estimation, is this a harbinger of regionalization of boards of health and health officers, do you think?
I can't answer that directly. I think is probably tied into a perception that perhaps it's better to do things by region than by individual counties. But I don't think this is really sort of the driving issue behind the governor's desire to create regional health departments. I think that's bigger than this.
Commissioner Brotherton.
Yes.
Hi, this is Lisa Ray. I was on a call earlier this morning, the statewide criminal justice opioid work group, where they review pending legislation that might have impacts on opioid responses. And I believe there was some discussion about potential legislation to regionalize public health jurisdictions. Once the meeting notes are sent out, if the proposed Senate or House bill that they talked about is in there, I'll send it on to this group.
Great.
Lisa, you're right. The bills have been dropped for the regionalization of public health jurisdictions. And so if anyone is interested in, I'll put those bill numbers in the chat box if anybody's interested in taking a look at them.
The reason why I put this in here is that possibility of the actual regionalization of public health and their offices. And for this group, who is Jefferson County focused, to be thinking about if there is over a period of time, obviously it's not going to happen, you know, by the end of this year, but there is a move toward a regionalized public health approach. How do we want to think about the consortium and how we set this up going forward? You know, is it ideal to have us located underneath, you know, if we're in Jefferson County, but it's actually being led in Kitsap, the public health that we're a part of the region of, then we would, there are strategic things that I think we want to do now to start making sure that we are prepared if such an eventuality happens. So that's why I bring it up now, just so it's on our radar.
And Lori, if I could just add, I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time worrying at this point, because I do think even if it were to come about, it would be quite some time from now. But I'm quite certain, with my familiarity with the legislative process, and I'm sure Commissioner Brotherton can confirm this, as many of you probably can, what is there right now, even if it were to move forward, is not what the bill would look like at the end. And there are a lot of other alternatives that we can potentially look at. The unfortunate thing about this particular piece of legislation is that no local government or person, either in public health or in county government or city government or any other government, local government, no one was involved in or asked to participate or asked to provide input into this plan. And so we were all completely caught off guard hearing about it for the first time in late December. So much more to come on this, and much more activity in relationship to it. One of the things I will say for our 3-county region, Kitsap, Jefferson, and Clallam, is that organically we have partnered very well for many years. As was mentioned earlier, a contract with Kitsap for our EPI services, for our community health assessment data services. That's been a natural connection. Jefferson County provides the nurse supervisor for Kitsap and Clallam's Nurse Family Partnership programs. We have always been sensitive to partnering and sharing services when it makes sense to do so for our region. And these are some of the stories that we will be telling the legislature as this bill moves through the process.
Thank you, Vicki. So I'm happy that we have it on our radar now, and I think it's important to keep it on our radar and to support our commissioners and public health as they move to make the story known to the folks who are making these decisions at the legislative level.
Hey, Lori, this is Jim. It's really interesting looking at that map because, and Jolene, you might have noticed it, pretty much mirrors the ACHs, the regions, the affordable communities of health. It's the same way they did the integration for behavioral health and physical health. I think they just reused the same map, just a couple of little changes in it. So if you're asking for rhyme or reason, I think that's where it's springing from. So
yeah,
if you look
The
for
only difference is the addition of Mason County.
yeah.
And we have heard that the addition of Mason County is because there are a good number of individuals who work in Mason County or who live in Mason County who work in Kitsap County. So the crossover between those two counties is what led to Mason County being included.
Yeah, ostensibly the decision behind the regions had to do with the healthcare flow. And North Mason healthcare is provided by Kitsap.
Peninsula Community Health Services provides both Mason and Kitsap's FQHC services. Correct.
Okay, well, thank you. So it is planted squarely on all of our radar. Moving on to the next topic, I just, in line with the ways that we do work together well as a region, Jamestown Slalom Healing Clinic, I heard at the OCH board meeting earlier this week, Brent Simkowski noted that the OCH board at that meeting that the concrete's going to be poured for the clinic in the next 4 weeks, which is exciting. And the project is scheduled for completion by the end of 2021. So as we're working on the pieces of our behavioral health system that we're working on, looking at ways that we can start to integrate with that as that comes online, I think will be an important component of what this group is looking at. And then on the 3 core treatment work group, go ahead.
Sorry, where is that going to be at? Do you know?
The address of it, it's behind Costco. Do I have that right? Is anybody?
Yes. That makes, yeah, I remember hearing that. Yeah, I didn't know if it was going to be on the, the slalom, the complex they have there now. But yeah, up behind the old Costco. Yeah.
Lisa, is there was something that you wanted to add there?
Oh, no, you're correct. That's where
it's going to be.
Yep, behind the Costco.
Was there another person trying to talk there?
Mel. Oh, it was Mel. I was just going to say it's just east of the current Costco in Squim.
Thank you. The current Costco. Let's get that straight. On the next slide, this is all Mel's work here. She worked with the treatment work group and sent out a survey to look at what topics would sort of rise to the top that the group would want to work on. And I hope I'm not jumping the gun here, but I think that these are the outcomes of that. So it will be interesting to see. Our next treatment work group, I think, is this week. And we'll come back next meeting with a little bit more information about what we're going to be doing there. So that is, again, another very productive regional tie-in that I think bears as much strengthening as we can have going forward. Oh, and then on this OCH funding, I just wanted to put some details there on the slide so that you could see why I'm kind of excited about the fact that OCH has gotten this grant and will be focused on what does it say here? Stigma related across the region, especially related to substance use disorder. I think that's right in line with some of the work that we're trying to do. And if there was any way we could add some of our communication action plan funds to what they're doing there and come up with something that, particularly in the measuring of how much progress we make, I think that would be a great collaboration to have in place. What you see there in terms of their budget is very much just a draft thing. This was something they were taking to the board and saying, this money is available to us. Do we want to accept it? Here's what we would propose to do with it. And this is a draft budget that I think will get refined, certainly as they go forward. One of the things that Brent Simkowski mentioned at that meeting was, whatever it is that's done, it can't just be putting messages on Facebook and Instagram. There needs to be something that is more in depth and different to address the stigma that we all know exists at a variety of levels. And so the goal is to get somebody in who is well versed in that front, who could help us with that. So more to come on that, but it's exciting to know that there's a potential for collaboration out there on a topic that's near and dear to our hearts.
Hey, Lori.
Yeah.
I assume when you're talking about the stigma, you mean the stigma of MAT?
You know, there's all kinds of stigma that we're trying to address related to substance use. There's the person maybe who has a challenge but doesn't want to say anything because of the stigma there. There's the stigma of if I, with MAT and somebody thinking less of someone because they see them, you know, associated with MAT. Go ahead.
So we're defining it broadly, but I guess what I'm getting at is this is like basically to combat the type of thinking that led to the huge kerfuffle with Save Our Squim and whatnot.
I think that is in part. It's also if we have wavered providers that maybe aren't so excited about seeing them, seeing how we can think about the stigma that's there and address it. Stigma around housing related to folks who are dealing with addiction.
Did Brett talk about just kind of like the cynicism around that and how that might be addressed?
You know, because this was a board meeting where they were just considering whether or not they would accept the funds, I don't think they went down a deep path on it, but I think that is absolutely something that will be in the discussion basket as they talk about who they want to bring in and what are their priorities and objectives with that grant.
Well, I'm glad that's on your radar because I think that's a big part of it is intentional misinformation and disinformation campaigns against the mentally ill and people who have substance use disorders. I think it's just something you should be on the lookout for.
Thank you. I'll be sure that gets into the discussion that I hope to go have with Celeste as we move forward. Thanks, Nat. Any other thoughts on that
You're
topic
welcome.
before I move on? Okay, I think the next part is all John.
So yeah, I'm just gonna give a quick update about what's going on with the rest of CHIP. I think you guys are aware that we've broken into 3 age bands. There's a youth age band, a working age band, which will be meeting right after this meeting as kind of a subgroup of the BHC, and then an elder age band. That's those other groups are just starting to meet, and we're excited to get that work underway. And then also, some of you were involved with the intergovernmental agency work on COVID remediation, the ICC group, different ICC groups. And Lori and I felt like it was important for us to integrate our work, make sure our work is integrated with the work that they're doing. So we took a look at their work plan and tried to crosswalk that with the age bands that we've set out for CHIP. So I don't need to go into the detail. You guys can look at this document. It's in the packet that we sent out, but just be aware that Lori and I are really trying to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts of other groups that are out there doing work. And then also because we realize that the ICG funding is kind of short-term funding, there's some of these efforts that we want to make sure there's continued activity on them at the end of the ICG funding that's available out there. So we're kind of keeping an eye on how that work's going and what's going on, and making sure that that where we can, we're integrated with that work. Some of these things are kind of underlying to the work that we're doing, and some of these things directly relate. So that's what we tried to do on this chart. And as we have some discussion in those age band work groups, we'll be delving a little bit deeper into these, but just wanted you to be aware of that.
Thank you, John. We really do appreciate how much work folks put into coming up with all of the different categories, and we want to make sure that hard work is carried forward in the CHIP work as well. I know that we have thrown an incredible amount at you guys. I welcome talking to you folks one-on-one. If there's questions that you have beyond this, we'll be sure to send out the link to the resources on the Be Healthy Jefferson website, and as well as the PDF of the resource guide that John's been working on. Any last thoughts before we sign off of this? And then those who are going to be in the working age, the working age work group that happens right after this, note that it's a different Zoom link that you need to link into to go to that meeting. Any other thoughts before we close this one down? All right, you guys, thank you for coming. We look forward to seeing you next time. I'll be calling you, I'm sure. Okay, bye-bye.
Well.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.